This is Basket Case Clubs, CPR Group's podcast where we turn basket case clubs into showcase clubs. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Basket Case Clubs, CPR Group's podcast where we love talking about, well, you just heard all of that in the intro, so I'm just going to say basket casey goodness and hello, Steve!
Hello! Welcome back. Wait, no, you got to welcome me.
Yeah, welcome back. It's lovely to be here with me again. So for all of our listeners, you might, if you're really cluey, you might be able to listen in closely and say, hang on a minute, things are sounding a little bit different, because this is only our second ever podcast in the entire history of Basket Case Clubs where we are sitting in the same room. Steve, why don't you tell our listeners in what room we happen to be sitting at the moment?
Well, it's currently a storeroom storing us and our recording gear.
Which is sitting on a cardboard box, sitting on
a shredder.
The shredder, which is sitting next to the photocopier, which is holding the audio interface.
Only the highest quality recording studio here, folks.
Actually,
there's even some spare clothes hanging up in here. Look.
There are some spare clothes, some high-vis gear and a vacuum cleaner. So we are currently undergoing some renovations, and when we tried to start this recording in my office, it sounded like we were recording in a dunny.
Hey, that would have been a funny take on our podcast.
It really would have. Because a funny thing...
A lot of toilet humour in that one.
Yes. So a funny thing happens when you sell all this shit. See what I did there? You get this room and it just has all walls and some hard surfaces, which are very, shall we say, reflecty. And so that's kind of what happened.
Soundy reflecty.
Yes. So we decided that we'd move into the least that's still got the most shit in it, apart from the dunny.
Hey, there is chocolate here.
Oh, okay. So we can have if you answer all of my questions correctly, Steve, then I will let you have a chocolate. So today we are continuing our journey down how to do a good strategic plan, and we've kind of been unravelling the crap that clubs typically go, well, crap might be a bit harsh, but what I mean by that is that it's really easy to get drawn into a whole heap of bureaucratic bullshit when you're doing a strategic plan. And I remember a project where you rang, I was just about to run a workshop. I was in Ipswich and you rang me and said, I've just had a phone call from a bureaucrat who is critiquing one of the plans, and you'd already delivered it to the club. I won't say where. Mm-hmm. The fact that I was in Ipswich, you were on the phone, so you could have been anywhere in the known universe. Well, probably somewhere where there wasn't a massive time. So you weren't on Mars. There's a hint. Yeah, or further than planet Earth. And you said, the club is so happy with the strategic plan and it is so practical and it goes through everything that it should. And I've just shown it to our contact at council and they've come back and said, here's that voice again.
I knew it was coming.
The objectives that you've included aren't SMART objectives. And you kind of lost your shit a little bit and said, okay, look, and we talked about that when we were talking about goal setting. Well, I think we did. There is room for measurability, but when you are just starting out on a strategic planning journey, the most important thing is, are you going to do it? So write it down, and if you're going to do it. Because, do you know, Steve, that to carry on from our goal setting episode last time, if you write your goals down, now this is not one of those statistics that is made up on the spot like 72% of other statistics, you are 42% more likely to achieve your goals just by writing them down.
Wow.
Because it just means, look, I can see that. It becomes something that you actually, that's why we call a vision, because you should be able to see it. So it looks like what it is in the future. So you're giving yourself a chance to see that. You're then able to subconsciously connect to it and you go, we might as well then take these steps to do that. So that's really important.
I know even myself, the old task list, the to-do list, if and we don't use task lists, we've got a more complicated project management tool that we use, which is great because it reminds you when things are due. You set due dates and, so similar to setting goals and putting some type of indication of when you want to have those goals done by.
You still get the same dopamine hit when you click done.
I do. Sometimes I write those things down just to tick them off. Yeah.
Of course you do.
So I find that purely by writing down the things that I've got to get done, that keeps them in that little safe place, which is our project management system. And if it goes a couple of days even, let alone weeks or months, between me looking at that list of things that I've got to get done in our project management system, when I go back to look at that list, I'm often surprised at the things that have left my mind. So if you don't have those goals written down and easily able to be referred to...
And the steps then you've got to take to get them done.
Absolutely. The likelihood that they completely fall off the bottom, and the important stuff makes way for the urgent stuff.
Yeah.
Becomes really
And then
quite
it's just
high.
all urgent.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's important to write down what we're going to try and achieve and what we're going to do to achieve it, which we'll talk about next time in the action plan. But I don't think you need to go into a whole heap of detail about measurability, because a lot of the things that especially clubs that haven't done planning before are saying that we want to achieve are things that you can say, well, did we do it? Is it done? So one of the groups we're working with at the moment is that it has a tourism component to what they do, and they want to achieve, through Tourism and Events Queensland, they want to achieve a Best of Queensland Experiences certification. So there's a 100-point check you've got to go through. You've got to get 80 points, and then you get certified. And there's all the benefits, the promotional benefits that come along with that. So in looking at all of those actions, getting Best of Queensland Experiences certification is what we want. So that's all we need. So whether we say that as a measurability component of it or not, it's kind of already built in. As you get more sophisticated, and I suppose that a lot of what we're talking about is kind of the entry-level strategic planning, which is the most part, mostly what's required for a community grassroots sports club. As you get more sophisticated, then you've got to get into business planning, which has all of the financial management components to it, the investment profile, and we would call that more of a business optimization strategy. So it's getting more sophisticated. But you do not need to get that sophisticated to have a plan, especially if it's the first plan that you've done either for a long time, or if it's the first plan you've done as a committee member, or if it's the first plan that your club has ever done. Just get the stuff written down and then get into it. So what we want to talk about today is that part of the plan that we mentioned last time that you will often see done early, which is the SWOT analysis. And as I think I said last time, it's where you write down a great big long list of things that you're shit at, and a whole heap of a massive big long list of things that can bring you unstuck, and you stick it on a wall in butcher's paper, and then you forget about it and say, right, now we need to build a new clubhouse, now we need to build a new field, now we need to upgrade our lighting. But hang on a minute.
But we did our SWOT analysis.
We did our SWOT analysis, but what about the fact that when we did that SWOT analysis, it said, well, we've got no money in the bank, and we've got a $90,000 debt with the ATO, and we don't have a lease, and so therefore we've got no authority to build anything anywhere. Maybe we should get some planning for that. So that's really the challenge today, is to take the crappy old SWOT analysis and turn it into something that's actually useful. So that's where I want to start. So what is a SWOT, Steve?
It's what you do to kill a fly.
I think that's a SWAT. and the SWAT team is it the end of Blues Brothers, remember? Hut, 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 hut.
Oh, yeah.
Was that the SWAT team as well?
So
Gosh, that was funny. And then we used to crawl around in the backyard going, hut, 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 hut.
well, to answer your question brutally, SWAT time.
SWAT time.
To answer your question brutally, honestly, a SWOT analysis is, for a lot of clubs, a waste of time because, as you said, they don't refer to it. But a SWOT analysis is where you set out your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But then, again, as you've said, if you don't refer back to that analysis and you don't use it to guide your goal setting and identification of actions, either to capitalise on those things that you recognise as opportunities, to carry on delivering services according to the strengths that you've identified, or to address any weaknesses or threats. Weaknesses typically being those shortcomings in your own internal operations, and threats typically representing external factors that can pose a threat to your potential future success as an organisation.
Yes, a lot of people divide it like that, and they draw a little matrix that has internal and external focus, where a strength and a weakness is internal and an opportunity and a threat is external. But I'd like to break down those barriers between that and say that while it's common that you consider that a strengths and weaknesses are internal, and I absolutely agree with that. It's also common that people say opportunities and threats are external, but they're not necessarily. They are not only limited to external factors. They could also simply be future-oriented factors. So if you think about it, if we've got a weakness of, well, okay, let's take one of the ones we talked about when we were talking about goal setting, with that association that said, well, we can't grow to 3,500 because, and they said a lack of coaches. Okay, so a lack of coaches is a current weakness if it's stopping us from doing what it is that we want to do. But that then leads to an opportunity to develop the skills of more coaches. Now, then we say, oh, well, hang on a minute. We don't just have to acquire new coaches who are already skilled. we've already got people in our club who aren't active as volunteers who may have the skills or the desire to gain the skills to become a coach. So there's an opportunity is to go data mining and look at who in our database may be interested in becoming a coach, and then the opportunity is to develop the skills of people we've already got, or indeed acquire new coaches. So that is completely within our control, and that's really in breaking down the barrier between internal and external. I think that's the critical point. Is it in our control or is it not in our control? So anything that is external already gets captured in that because it's outside of our control. So sure, that could, if it's good, it's an opportunity. If it's bad, it's a weakness. But things that are future oriented that are in our control can still be good or bad as well. So there are things that are in our control that could be a threat. So at the moment we have we have a good risk profile, we have a good risk management program, we look out for things. But what if especially if that comes down to just one person who's doing that, if that person leaves, then there's a risk that all of a sudden our risk exposure will be increased because the person who's doing a great job of risk management disappears.
Yep.
So then we really get to the crux of where I want to push is when you write down anything, the next step is, and so what does that mean? And then, and so what do we need to do about it? So pick any one of those. Let's say the risk management one. So if one person is doing a great job of risk management, the risk is that they leave. So then what does that mean for us? Well, then we've got a potential greater exposure to risk. And now what do we need to do about it? So straight away, I'm thinking, well, obviously that's an area that should be shared. So that person we should either be developing the skills of other people in that area, or having that person work with other people to share their knowledge and share their skills, so that then they're getting upskilled.
So maybe create a subcommittee.
All right, Steve, so now it's your turn. Let's go back to what we were talking about earlier, and we'll pick another one because I think I dealt with the coaching one, so I won't ask you to do that. But what about the fields? Remember they'd said, oh, we don't have enough fields. So where does that fit? Is it in our control, outside of our control? Because a lot of people would say it's outside of our control. Listen to me, I'm leading you down where I want you to go anyway. So is it in our control? Is it outside of our control? What does it mean for us? And most importantly, what can we do about it?
Okay, yeah, so sure, it could be determined, as you say, that it's outside of our control. But if we assume that we can exercise some control over, we may have additional we may have additional land that is not yet developed into playing field. So there's a possibility there that we could do some facility realignment to establish additional playing field space, or we could work with external stakeholders such as council or our neighbours. And we're working right now on a master planning project where a pretty significant rugby league club has purchased additional land, and due to good business management and the creation of a healthy bank balance, and also running a successful business that posed a viable investment proposition to a bank, and they went and got a loan and purchased some extra land. So that then has put them in a situation where they've got more than 3 times the land that they've typically had. So they took a problem that could have been deemed as outside of their control and brought it within their control by running a good business. So what was the next question? Now,
so that's what it means for them. So all right, so you've already started to operationalise it. So what are some of the things that they can do? These guys went and purchased new land. You talked about creating partnerships with other groups. So is there vacant land available? One of the other ones, what if you've already got a field that isn't fully developed? So it doesn't have a good irrigation system. It doesn't have a good drainage system. So it's the field that gets lost as soon as it gets dry for a while or towards the back end of the season, and it just becomes a dust bowl. Or it doesn't have lighting on it. And so it's not that we don't have field space, it's we don't have available time on the field because the field doesn't have the carrying capacity. So if we complete our embellishment process on that field, full lighting, full irrigation, full drainage system, even with a water collection system, that means that we can actually reuse the irrigation, because the better the drainage, unfortunately, the quicker it gets dry, so you've got to water it more. But now we're talking about embellishment, so these are things that we can do to deal with the fact that we don't currently have enough fields, and in this case now taking it a step further, saying enough field carrying capacity.
Yep. Okay. And so another idea that comes to mind is that there may be another club not too far from your own that has sufficient playing field space, but they don't have enough players to capitalise on that space.
Yep.
So maybe you can talk about partnerships with them. And I met just this morning with a tennis club that can't access its facilities for lengthy periods throughout the year because of other things that happen in the precinct from which they operate. And they've established partnerships with other tennis clubs so that they can access their courts during those times where they're locked out. And we've talked in the past on the podcast about creating partnerships, and that's a great way to further your organisation's delivery of its services by capitalising on potential available field space elsewhere.
Yeah. So that's plenty. We haven't done an action plan yet. That's what we'll come back to that next time. But
Yep.
what we've just done is operationalised solutions to all of the problems that the SWOT analysis finds.
Yep.
So
we didn't just do the SWOT analysis and then shelve it.
exactly. And that's really where too many groups go wrong. They just go, let's do the SWOT analysis. So they do. They're getting a tick in that box, but then it doesn't mean anything for them. So that is the SWOT analysis. The most important thing though, Steve, is, well, what do you think the most important thing is for the SWOT analysis?
I think you've got to ensure that this process is as fun as it possibly can be and engaging. So involving the right people who are in the know about what the organisation is doing well, what it's not doing well, where its opportunities might lie and so on. And one of the ways to achieve that can be to consult your broader membership, so to involve more than just the core group of committee members who do all the doing as well as all of the strategy setting, and cast that net a bit wider and see if you can involve a broader cross-section of those people involved in your organisation to participate, because you're more likely then to actually capture more comprehensively those things that you're doing well, not so well, and what your threats and opportunities are.
Yeah, that's a really good point. In saying that, you don't have to involve everyone though.
Yes.
Because if you've got 350 members, if you go and ask everyone, guess how many opinions you're going to get?
There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen.
There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So yeah, involve the right people. But you're absolutely right. I think that it is so important to have fun with this. Just like everything, we talked about when you're setting goals, that's so rewarding because you're going, oh my God, look at what's possible, especially if you push through to those possible goals, not
Yes.
just the doable or the stretch goals. So this should be the same. It's so easy to get bogged down, especially when you get to the weaknesses. So when you're doing the strengths, don't be too humble, but then say, so what does this strength mean? Could we build on that? And then when you're doing the weaknesses, don't be too hard on yourself. But the final point that I would say is when you've got those two lists, it's really easy to say, well, let's go and fix all of our weaknesses. And that's fine, but that can take a lot of energy to do that might not deliver as much benefit as saying, hey, we're already super good at these things over here. Let's focus on being even better at those. And rather than fix the weaknesses, let's eliminate the impact that those weaknesses have on us and our operations by being even better at what we're already good at. So that's a bit of a mind breaker in that as well, because we spend too much time on our weaknesses, and sometimes they're called areas for improvement.
Because it's easy to be critical there.
Yeah. And then we can go, well, we can focus on that and focus on that, but you may be missing greater opportunities. It's like take a marketing approach and say, if we're doing some marketing that is not working, and at the same time we're doing some marketing that is, so maybe we're still advertising on the radio and our conversion, it costs us a mozza, but we're not converting very many from that. And every now and again we're putting $50 or $60 on Facebook to promote some Facebook posts, and we can directly see and measure the benefit. And we're getting good results from that. Stop doing the stuff that's not working. Reinvest that time and energy and money over to what is working, and then get even more benefit from that. So yeah, that's a really interesting one. Probably a good place to finish up. Thanks, Steve. That was good fun, especially the bit where you did the planning for field development for us. That was very handy. So I hope you all rip that off and say, oh, let's go and... Well, the club that has gone and purchased more land is in a situation that many clubs aren't.
Yes.
But if you're not, remember, that makes it possible. So if that's something that you go, oh, I wish we'd be able to do that, get off your ass and start now. So that club didn't just earn enough money in the last 10 years to go and buy however many hectares of, enough
30-odd hectares.
30-odd hectares. That's a lot of fields and a lot of multi-sports that they can introduce and will then make them a better business. don't think, oh, lucky bastards. Go and say, well, go and start. If there's shit that you can do, go and get started on it. Don't just sit around waiting until the world falls into your lap, or the luck in the world falls into your lap, because it ain't gonna. You've got to make that happen. And yes, it takes time, maybe decades, but if you don't start now, then the whatever it is, say 15, 20 years down the track, just keeps getting booted down the road as well.
Yeah, I think it's also important just to come back to the chat that we had last episode about setting your goals and then identifying the steps to get you to the goals. And as you rightly point out, this club is in a situation where they could purchase that land because of the incremental steps that they've taken. And to give you an idea, they're a rugby league club, a leagues club, and when I turned up there at 10 o'clock in the morning to have some meetings with other stakeholders, there were a shitload of people in the club, but they weren't there for pokies or rugby league. They were there for bowls, because this club has constructed a covered bowling green that is bringing a whole new cohort of members and visitors and guests into the club that are now supporting the club's business operations. Yeah. So that's one of those incremental steps that they've taken. And that in itself is a big goal that they had to take incremental steps to achieve. But so
cool
good
stuff.
Showcase.
So to wrap up, I'm going to invite you all to go and scour Google Maps somewhere on planet Earth to see if you can find that club that is a rugby league club with some extra land around it with a bowls club attached to it. Knowing that Google Maps is sometimes out of date, you might just skip straight over it anyway. Steve, thank you very much for joining me on this journey of Basket Casey goodness again. If you're not already following us on social media, make sure you do. You'll get Steve and me and CPR Group on LinkedIn. You'll find us on Facebook. Of course, get us on our website, cprgroup.com.au. Sign up for our newsletter there. We've got lots of interesting things that always go out in the newsletter. And of course, we do have a phone number, so if you'd like to give us a call. We still have a phone. Well, we've got a big box of phones that we've just decommissioned, but we've still got a phone. We'll still answer the phone. So feel free to give us a call, and of course, keep the good ideas for future episodes of Basket Case Clubs coming. Steve, until next time, thanks again.
Thank you, Mick. Bye.
See ya. Basket Case Clubs acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country on which we record, being Yugambeh, Turrbal, Jagera and Kabi Kabi land. We recognise their enduring connection to land, waters and culture, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to First Nations listeners.